Leaders today are facing incredible challenges in the workplace. So many things to deal with, from the changes going on around us to how people are reacting to that in the workplace. So today we're going to talk about how leaders can face those challenges with my special guest, Kim Ades from Frame of Mind Coaching. Welcome, Kim. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be talking to you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Great. So I'm Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. Kim, give us a little snapshot of who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the discussion about leadership challenges.
Okay, great. Well, I own an executive coaching company called Frame of Mind Coaching. We have a team of coaches in Canada and the US, and we've been coaching what we call the highly driven population, typically business owners, the C-suite, senior leaders for the past 20 years. And what we're really interested in is the relationship between the way a leader thinks and the outcomes that that leader experiences, the results they get. And we have a very interesting way of coaching, but I'm sure we'll probably discuss a little bit of that as we talk.
Great, great. So I want to talk, and we want to talk about the challenges leaders are facing. Obviously, every business has objectives and targets that they want to meet, and you can't do that on your own. You have an organization made up of people, so you have to optimize the performance of people.
Yeah.
Let me hear from you about what are some of the challenges that leaders that you see your clients are facing today.
So the people that we coach typically have one of four challenges, and we see this repeatedly over time, over industries, and over geographies. We just see it repeatedly. It's one of these four challenges, and sometimes it's more than one of them at the same time. So the first thing we see is that many leaders feel a sense of isolation. So, they're in it, they're accomplishing things, they're doing a lot of things, they're taking a lot of action, but they feel the burden of responsibility. That burden sits on their shoulders. And while they have people to delegate to, they feel like the buck stops here. And so, in a sense, they feel like they're in it on their own, but also they're typically leaders who need to be careful about how they show up. And so they don't always want to share their vulnerabilities. They don't want to share their weaknesses, their worries. They don't want to create chaos or create a sense of fear or nervousness in the workforce. So they keep it to themselves, and they don't always feel like they have someone they can talk to or trust to work out their own sense of insecurity, concern, fear, or worry. So they're often feeling like this sense of being alone with no one really to discuss things with. So that's the first thing, this feeling of isolation. The second thing we see is a sense of friction. And what I mean by that is human friction. They tend to be people who experience conflict, friction with others. And what we see is two kinds of friction. One is overt friction, and the other is covert friction. So these are leaders who want to move quickly. They don't have patience when other people don't move at their speed. They often feel that other people don't have the same sense of urgency. They don't get it as quickly. They're not always on the same page with others. And so sometimes that gets them angry, and you can hear and feel palpably that anger, that frustration, that friction. Maybe they get aggressive, maybe they yell, maybe they, have a bit of an outburst, or they sound angry, but we can tell that there's some kind of friction going on. But more often than not, they are observing their team, how their team is performing, and they feel like perhaps the team isn't up to par. And so they have a million things on their minds, and they're like, I can't deal with this right now. And they hold it in. And so we call that covert friction. And they say, they often tolerate kind of situations, performance that isn't necessarily up to their standards. So there's this ongoing feeling of internal discomfort with the people in their world. Sometimes that's personal, by the way, but what we're talking about right now is professional. So there's friction. The third thing we see is that these leaders often experience what I call chronic dissatisfaction. And so they often feel like they should be further ahead than they are. And they don't understand what's holding things up. Is it them? Are they lacking leadership skills? Are they weak? Are they poor strategists? Are they poor at choosing the right people? Is it their team? Like what's going on? Is it just the competition? But why are things so hard when perhaps it's a lot easier for some of their peers? And they just have this feeling like they're behind the eight ball and they're not where they want to be. And this is consistent. They might achieve something, but then they say, okay, that was good, but we need to continue. And that's not enough. We can't ride our laurels on that. We need to move ahead. And then the fourth thing is a term that I invented that I have noticed among my clients is something called slippage. And what I see is a lot of leaders are working super hard and they're very, very goal oriented, very focused on their work accomplishments, that they let important things slip through the cracks. And what I mean by that is they're not sleeping very well, they're not eating very well, they're not exercising necessarily. They are stressed a lot of the times, their relationships maybe a little bit volatile or fragile, and they're tired and they often feel like, wait a minute, I'm working this hard. Is this all there is? Like, I don't, I expected a bit more quality of life. And, I don't know how to fit it all in. And so we see those four areas of frustration among most leaders that we coach.
It's very interesting. I can relate to that. I see that with people that I've worked with and people that I meet. A lot of people suffer from this. So how do you address this with your clients is it pinpointing one of those four, or by working on the solutions that you bring, you address all four? Explain to me your process
Yeah.
and
So,
how you
so
deal with it.
yeah, I love the questions, that particular question, because I don't address the solutions. Solutions kind of fall out. They surface. That's a better way to put it. They surface as a result of coaching. Okay, so it's not the solution that's so super important, because there are multiple solutions to any problem. We know that, right? So it's not a solution problem, it's a thinking problem that I'm interested in. So what is the thinking that causes the leader to get into this kind of experience where they're unhappy? What is the thinking? And so what I do is I really examine and study the thinking of that leader and to understand how they see the world, what they believe to be true, how they operate, how they react to negative experiences, how they respond to stress, how they interact and communicate with others. And what I'm really looking at is, how is my leader wired? And how does their wiring influence what they do and what they don't do, and ultimately the outcomes they get? So how do we coach? We Again, we work with the highly driven population. They don't want long drawn out experiences. They want results quickly. That's just the way they are. So what we do is we create a very intense upfront, front loaded coaching experience that's designed to move clients far in a very short period of time. So how does it work? We give them, we say to them, we want you to commit to us for 10 weeks. Let's just start with 10 weeks. Here's what happens in 10 weeks. There's a call every week. We record every call so that they can listen to their recordings and hear themselves speak, hear what they're saying, the words they're using, and start to pick up a sense for, hey, I keep bumping into this same problem. Maybe it's with different people, maybe it's with different circumstances, but it's the same problem over and over and over again. And so the idea is that they become observers of their own thinking. And then in between every single coaching session we ask them to journal in a private and secure online journal with their coach on a daily basis. So what happens is at the beginning of the week, they get a journaling question or a journaling prompt, and they start journaling. And every day that they journal, even on the weekends, their coach is on the other side of the journal, reading and responding to the journal, asking questions, digging more deeply, really understanding the motivations, the drivers, the way that this person grew up and how that experience influences who they are now, and on and on and on, right? We're looking at the whole picture, not only how they operate at work, but how they operate at home. Why? Because they're integrated. But on a daily basis, the coach is interacting with their client to learn everything there is to learn about the client. And what that does is it creates a very intimate experience. And that intimacy enables the client to get to deep places and really do a lot of self-reflection very quickly and take ownership of every result that they have.
Hmm. So it's like building self-awareness and self-knowledge through the process of journaling and discussing with the coach, it sounds like.
Exactly. And so what happens is their leadership skills dramatically improve. Their ability to communicate dramatically improves. They're able to, first of all, understand and then communicate just on their own what it is that they want. And then they're able to transfer that to the people around them. And they're also able to understand how, and this is a very big one, how a lot of times our thinking, you, me, all of us, our thinking leads us away from what we want. And how
Explain
we
that a
are,
little more. Explain that a little more.
I'll give you an example. Like
Yeah.
I'm coaching a person right now. She's an executive. She runs a hedge fund, a huge, ginormous organization. And, one of the beliefs that she has is that, um, is that she needs to look over her shoulder and make sure, no one's coming after her. But her desire is to build amazing relationships. So if she's always looking over her shoulder, making sure no one's like attacking her, how does she build amazing relationships? That doesn't go together. Does that make sense? Doesn't go
Yeah. So
together.
it's like there's a conflict in her way of seeing things. She has a fear of being I don't know what it is,
Yes.
sabotaged maybe.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that.
Yeah,
So once you realize that these two things are at odds, something's got to give. You have to decide what that thing is. Those two beliefs, those two things, they can't coexist.
right.
And so what ends up happening is her relationships aren't as good as she wants them to be. Okay,
So
so if
uh,
this is what you want, we need to rethink this thing over here.
it sounds like the term cognitive dissonance. Is that the right
Yes,
term? Yeah. So
yes,
that two opposing forces cannot exist for too long. Something's going to explode, right? And that
something's going
can
to explode.
cause a lot of stress
Yeah,
and health issues and
yes.
so on. So
And disappointment and dissatisfaction and
absolutely.
self-doubt and all kinds of things.
Even if you're making a ton of money, if you're experiencing that, you're not happy and you're not satisfied.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. And there's a million examples of this. Like so many examples. You want me to give you another example?
Yeah, but before we go to that one, tell me, like, how does this person then resolve that? Because, it's like you talk
How
about
does the person
thinking.
resolve this? What we
Yeah, because
do
it's
is
habit, right? There's a habit ingrained in them.
exactly, there's a habit. And so
Yeah,
what we're doing is we are rewiring the brain and we are kind of breaking the habit in a way and redirecting the tendency. Okay. So one of the ways that we redirect the tendency is we look at her history in this case and we say, where were you actually supported by others in your life? Where do people in your world actually open doors for you and you know, allow you to walk through those doors? And what she starts to notice is, hey, the story I'm telling is not 100% true. The story I'm telling that people are after me is not actually accurate. It's an invention that I made and wrapped my arms around and turned into truth, but it's not actually truth. So what we're doing is we're poking holes in her storyline. And the minute you poke holes in the storyline, right, is the minute you create space for a different storyline to potentially exist. And so the outcome for her is, yeah, it's true, actually. Not everybody's after me. Some people are really behind me. And now we teach her that you can focus on the people who are after you or the people who are behind you. You get to choose. One of these choices gives you a much healthier, better, happier life. The other one creates resentment and fear. Choose.
I think we all, not only leaders, I know maybe it's more apparent with leaders, to have these intense type of thinking that are uh, opposing forces. But I think everybody kind of does that, right? We all have these beliefs about ourselves that have come from our past experiences, relationships that we don't even know where they came from, and have a negative impact on our present way of experiencing life. So how does one, without a coach even, is there a way for people to at least identify what may be causing this type of experience, this type of opposite thinking that's having a negative impact on them?
Well, the first thing we want to do is identify instead of why, but what, right? What are the negative thoughts that you're having? Let's pull them out of you because these negative thoughts are not allowing you to easily reach your goals. They're getting in the way. They're slowing you down. They're kind of like, spoke in your wheel. They're getting in the way.
Mhm.
And so the first thing we want to do is what are those? Let's see them. And through the process of journaling, as a coach, I'm able to pick up patterns of beliefs, patterns of behaviors, their tendencies. They are become very apparent very, very easily. And so as a coach, I work with a great deal of data, and that data enables me to see very clearly how this client feels, how they think, how they operate, how they respond to similar stimulus, etc. And that gives me the information that I need to say, okay, here's the pattern, here's the theme, here's the belief that I think exists in you. Is it accurate? And the client says, yes, actually, that's exactly accurate, right? The client gets to decide, right? I'm just pulling it out and I'm saying, is this true? The client says, yes, that's true. And now we decide, once we see it, we can make some decisions around it. We can provide them some tools for what I call trading up that belief for something that's more useful. We can also show how sometimes history was uniquely designed to bring them to where they are now. And maybe it wasn't an ideal history, but we can look at it with sadness or frustration or disdain or resentment, or we could look at it as the pathway that was uniquely designed for them that is perfect, even though it was a little challenging. So, right, there are lots of ways for us to approach this, and we approach it in multiple ways. But the whole idea is you're here now. Where are we going to go next? Let's shed the luggage, the heavy burden we keep carrying that comes with us from our past and from our interpretation of the past. Let's put it down.
It sounds like you're somewhat of a psychoanalyst.
No, no, it's not like that. Like we don't need to go fix the past. The past
But
happened.
you can't
It's
fix the past, right?
we can't fix the
Wait,
past. So it's how do we accept the past and move forward? So we look at the past only to understand how the person appears now, how the person operates now. But I'm not interested in the past, just informs me in the present and allows me to help them create a path forward.
yeah, it's like I learned that the process of change begins with awareness. And then once you become aware of what's causing your choices or situation, then you make a choice. What are you going to do about it? And then you act on it. And it kind of sounds that's what you're doing.
It's
You're
very similar.
clarifying and bringing
The,
awareness.
the thing is, and you're exactly right. And here's why, here's the very important component here. We're not always aware of our beliefs. We're not aware of the beliefs that run our show, right? They're blind spots. And so if we have no awareness, it's hard to make change. It's hard to improve. It's hard to pivot. It's hard to break the habit. It's hard to do anything if we don't know what the belief is that has such a strong hold over us.
So you're like the mirror, for the person to bring to light, when you stand in front of them, you can't see yourself. If you just had a meal and you have stuff all over your face, you need your friend to tell you, hey, go wipe your mouth or whatever.
Right. You got some ketchup.
Or you go to the mirror and you see, hey, I better clean up, right?
Right.
So you're like that mirror that brings that awareness and clarity for the person then to better understand, what am I doing that's putting me into this situation that I'm experiencing?
And more importantly, what am I thinking that's putting me
Okay.
into the situation? Because first we think, then we
Okay.
do.
Okay.
The problem is very few people realize that they think first. They think they're just doing. And if you ask anybody, okay, like this, if you ask anybody, what's your greatest challenge? They'll give you a challenge. And then they say, well, how do you think you need to approach that? Well, I need a plan. I need to do these things differently. And usually they jump into action. They never say, I need to clean up my thinking first.
So, but don't we feel first and that triggers a thought?
No, it's the opposite. First, we
Huh.
think. That thought triggers a feeling. So the way we think about anything will determine how we feel. So
So,
I'll give you an example.
yeah.
Okay. I'm giving you like a really random example. You have a woman. She's dating a guy. Okay. And the guy breaks up with her. The woman can feel very sad, upset, rejected, broken, or the woman can feel relief, freedom, right? What's the difference? It's the same event took place. The difference is in the interpretation of the event.
So
It's
how you see it.
how you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're following me. I can see you thinking.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, if I was in love with that person and they broke up with me, I'm gonna feel sad.
Loss.
I'm gonna feel like I'm losing something that I cherish. Isn't that gonna trigger those negative thoughts?
No, the negative thought comes from I just lost something. This is
Mhm.
bad. Therefore, I feel bad.
Okay.
I interpret this as a loss. Therefore, I feel bad.
And the problem is we can't stop thinking, right? Our mind is
Well, we have
always,
we have like 60,000 thoughts going on inside of us a day. The issue is we're not aware of every single thought we have, nor should we be, because then we'd be all neurotic, right? So, but we have a lot of thoughts that are buzzing around in our brains at all times, and sometimes they're happening so fast we don't realize that we think first, then we feel. We have a sense that it's the opposite, but that's not the case. It's just we have a habit of thought, right? We have habitual thoughts.
so but here's another thought that came to mind. So you're saying really that our past triggers thoughts that become habits, which lead us to respond in certain ways to certain situations because these thoughts keep reoccurring based on
So
what we learned from our past and our experiences. But the question I have is everybody's different. Like, you describe leaders who are very action oriented. If people don't often go at their pace, maybe they're highly intelligent. I mean, it takes like to start a business or be in a role where you've moved up the ladder to a highly responsible, powerful job where you have a lot of people under you. So, it's like the classic A-type personality is
yes,
from the past.
exactly. Classic A type.
But aren't certain people born with those attributes? And and that drives them to be that type of person. And it's not always the past experiences, it's just kind of like in their DNA type of thing.
Um, Look, let's go back, okay? Because what you said, I just want to clarify, and I'm going to give you 5 words to think about. 5 words, okay? Thoughts. So the thoughts that you have over and over and over and over again form beliefs. The
Right.
beliefs you have drive the expectations you have. The expectations you have determine what you do and what you don't do. And what you do and what you don't do, your behaviors will give you the outcomes you're getting. Okay, so that's it. Thoughts, beliefs, expectations, behaviors, results. 5 words. That's how it goes over and over and over and over again. And so you use the word habit, it's correct, but it's a belief. Because when you think the same thought over and over again, it becomes a belief.
Mhm.
And in fact, a lot of people believe that their beliefs are fact. Okay, so when you have a thought that in your brain is a fact, now that's interesting. So you asked a question. You said, aren't some people just wired differently from others? Yes, but their beliefs still are running the show, whatever those beliefs are. Their beliefs might be, I can do this. Their beliefs might be, I can win the competition. Their beliefs might be, I'm smart, I'm capable, I can do this, right? Those are some of the beliefs they might have, which is why they're the ones who start the company. Their beliefs might be, I have a good idea and I think it'll work. I believe it'll work, right? So, yes, perhaps they're wired. It doesn't matter. We are all human and we all still have beliefs that get in the way of our ultimate, ease, peace, exhilaration, fulfillment, and joy.
Okay.
So it makes no difference how you're wired. The fact is, we all have a set of beliefs that influence everything that we hear, smell, taste, and touch.
So I remember, you know, in my course on organizational development and some of the other trainings that I learned, this process of beliefs leading to results,
Yeah.
and that the way to disrupt that and get is to, yeah, change your beliefs or force that change in behavior, uh, and that will change the belief. Like if
It's
somebody's
tricky.
like if somebody's always coming late, let's say like an hourly worker, they're always coming late to work, then if you set a consequence that forces them to change their behavior, because if they don't change it, they're going to lose their job. The belief that it's okay to come late will change. That goes back to the cognitive dissonance, will change to align with the new behavior that they need to take. Is that
Well, but given another work environment, they would revert back to their old behavior.
okay?
Okay, so let's take another
It's
example.
temporary in this case.
Temporary in this case, exactly. So look, let's use another example that many of us are very familiar with. Um, do we know how to lose weight? There are
Yeah,
lots of different ways to lose weight, right? We don't lack information about weight loss, but
right.
something stops us from getting it done, right? And it has to do with our beliefs about the cost of weight loss, our beliefs about missing out on things, our beliefs about, what is life about if you can't like enjoy a good glass of wine or a piece of cake or whatever it is. Those beliefs are hardwired. Okay, so if I say, okay, here are the things you need to do in order to lose weight, and you do them, right? What happens? So many people do them for a period of time, and then what? They revert back. If I don't address the beliefs, then what we have is temporary change because those beliefs are hardwired, right? So, okay, fine. I won't eat whatever sugar for 6 months, but now it's like my daughter's birthday and everybody's eating cake. And I feel one of two things. I feel like I am missing out, like I'm not participating, properly, or I feel like, um, I'm holding myself together, right? Or I say, screw it, I'm just going to eat cake, right? So I'm what happens is when my beliefs aren't lined up with the thing I'm trying to do, I'm containing it for a while until I can't contain it anymore.
Okay. You were going to give another example. Do you want to share
Yeah,
that?
I'll give you a perfect example. I always ask my clients to journal, right?
Right.
And so in about week 8, I give them one particular journaling assignment. And the assignment is that I ask them to write an ideal conversation. And it doesn't matter who they have chosen to write it with. They can choose someone who has passed away, someone who's famous, someone they used to know, someone they had a fight with once upon a time, someone they are dying to know. It doesn't matter. All they need to do, the only parameter is it must be an ideal conversation. Years ago, I was coaching a woman who happened to be in sales, VP of sales for a technology company, and she decided what she wanted was to become Secretary of State. And in her imaginary ideal conversation, she decided to have it with the government administration, and she decided that they would interview her for the position. Again, imaginary journal, right? So in the journal, they said, wow, we looked at your resume. You look like a great candidate, but tell us in your own words, what qualifies you for this position? And so in her journal, she wrote paragraphs and paragraphs about her qualifications. She wrote about how, her family came from Japan, they started a business, they contributed to the US economy. She wrote about how she got a degree in economics and how that would contribute to her job. And then she wrote a 10-point plan about everything she would do in her role as Secretary of State. And they said, wow, you're an incredibly impressive candidate, and we're super excited. You're definitely on the top of our list. And as soon as we've interviewed all the candidates, we'll get back to you. And the bottom of her journal, she wrote me a personal note. The note was, how's that for dreaming big? Stephen, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that's dreaming big?
Sounds like it.
I gave her a blank slate to create an ideal conversation. And what did she create? She created a situation where she had to prove her value, where she had to explain all the reasons why she was wonderful, great, and awesome. And at the end of all this, they still didn't give her the job.
Mhm.
Why? Why didn't she give herself the job? Well, she had a belief that it wasn't polite, that it was too aggressive, it was too, self-aggrandizing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what did she do? She didn't close the deal. And what we noticed is that at work, she wasn't closing deals either. She was opening all these opportunities, but she wasn't closing the deals. Why? Too aggressive, not
So,
appropriate.
so in order to effectuate change towards something that we want different in our lives, that we want to experience different, we need to, first of all, understand the beliefs that we have that are holding us on the same thought pattern, and that's driving the behaviors that lead to the same results over and over again, is what
Exactly.
I hear you
Exactly
saying.
that. Exactly that.
So
And
how
in the
can
case of this
somebody,
client,
yeah,
once she started to realize that she was being held back by this fundamental belief about being polite and not wanting to be aggressive and on and on and on, right? Her sales changed. Like in the next 3 months, she accomplished more than she did the entire previous year, just by understanding that her behavior, which was driven by her beliefs, was not leading her to the outcome she wanted.
so what did she do different in
She
her
asked for the sale.
interaction?
She
Okay.
asked for the sale. She managed the sales process more effectively. She did not leave it in the hands of the client to say, okay, you get back to me when you're ready. She pursued it. She followed up. She said, here's the sales process. Here's the time frame. Let's go. Let's get started. Right?
That's very interesting. Um, how can somebody listening right now use your approach in terms of, identifying their beliefs through journaling or whatever? Can somebody start right now
Yeah,
applying what
for
you're
sure.
telling us? What would be the
100%.
steps? Let's hear that.
So I am a big, huge fan of journaling. I think journaling is very revealing, but many people say, well, I don't know what to journal about. So for people who are listening who don't know what to journal about, um, on our website, frameofmindcoaching.com, there's a link with 10 very, very powerful journaling prompts. So just download it. And that's your starting point. Use those prompts, sit down with those questions and say, okay, like how would I answer these questions? How do I think? How do I feel? And then read it back to yourself. Once you read it back to yourself, you'll say, what are the beliefs that I have right now, right here? And do those beliefs line up with my desires and goals? Yes or no? But always the prompt is the question, right?
Right.
So we often say great solutions are born from great questions.
So once you identify your beliefs,
And
uh,
say, is this a belief that's taking me where I want to go? Is this a belief that is going to sustain me and is going to help me create the life I want? If
so
not,
yeah,
how do I need to challenge this belief? I need to ask myself, is this belief even true?
right.
Is it a fact?
Yeah, usually a lot of our beliefs are untruths that we learned and accepted and keep us back from where we want to go, I think.
Exactly.
So how does one then, once you identify your beliefs through this 10, 10 step you think you said? 10
Oh no,
prong?
it's 10 journaling prompts. You can
Okay.
just download them, but then select one to start with. It doesn't have to be the one on the top, but it could be any one you want, but just start journaling. Once you identify the beliefs, what you want to do is you want to say, okay, like here's the belief I have. So you'll pull it out and say, how do I trade up this belief so that it's a little bit better?
Okay. Like how to remove the obstacle. It's kind of like that. My belief is the obstacle holding me back from the person I want to be or the result I want to create.
Exactly.
So can affirmations play a role in that?
So the reason why I'm not a fan of affirmations is because affirmations take you from 0 to 100 in one step. So I'll give you another example. I have a client who has a very poor perception of her sister-in-law. So she feels like her sister-in-law is disrespectful, doesn't treat her well, and all this kind of stuff. And it causes a little bit of problem. It causes problems for her husband because her husband wants everybody to get along. But she sees her sister-in-law and she's behaving a certain way. And so she has a belief, conviction that her sister-in-law is disrespectful. And so if I say to her, like, let's just go to the idea of an affirmation, the affirmation would be, well, family's everything, and I can overlook this, and my sister-in-law is awesome, right? My sister-in-law is awesome. My sister-in-law is awesome. My sister-in-law is awesome. But if inside of her she says, yeah, who am I kidding? She's disrespectful, then what we have is an increased cognitive dissonance. We have an increased gap between where she is and where we want her to be. Does that make sense? And so this whole idea of affirmations creates that bigger gap between where you are and where you want to be. And so what I prefer to say instead is, okay, so let's say she's starting off with, my sister-in-law is disrespectful. The next step could be, but not all of her actions are really about me. She's believing that, right? So what are we doing? We're softening the thought. We're softening the belief. Yeah, she is my husband's sister. It would be good to get along. Do you see how we're like moving it up? Instead of going from 0 to she's awesome to we're slowly taking it in gradual improved steps. And we're giving her beliefs she could buy, beliefs she could wrap her hand or her arms around. Right? Are you following me?
Yeah. So, we were going to talk about perhaps conflict in the workplace too. And it sounds like this could be applied to that because, we work with people and sometimes we have a interaction which can cause, a negative reaction in us,
Yes.
and we build a belief around that person is such a way. And we put all the responsibility on them without taking responsibility for developing that belief and letting that belief hold us back from addressing the conflict in a positive way. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. But we should talk about conflict in a whole other episode. I think.
Yeah, for
'Cause
sure.
that's a whole conversation all by itself, right?
Do you see a lot of conflict happening in the workplace now with,
Yes, I see a lot of conflict. We coach a lot of family-owned businesses, large businesses. So we see family conflict, but we
right?
also just see conflict among levels of senior leadership. Seeing distrust, seeing the feelings of disrespect, feeling like one person isn't being treated as fairly as the other, and on and on and on. We see so much of that.
Mhm. Do you think it's worse today than, I mean, the rate of change and uh, the way we do things has speeded up because of technology, a sense of urgency. I don't know what. There's a lot of stuff driving
I,
potential
I'll
stress and conflict.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that because of the fact that we no longer spend so much face time together, there's a lot more questioning about another person's intentions. And when we are doubtful or insecure or have fear around someone else's intentions, that creates friction. So I
So,
definitely see that
yeah.
quite a bit.
So even just sitting down and talking to people, and
Yeah, people aren't
I
doing
guess
much of that.
learning this better communication skills, how to better listen,
Yeah,
inquiry skills,
yeah,
how to be honest with people about, what they're feeling as a result of something that happened. People need to work through that, and it's not the boss that needs to navigate that for people. People need to learn that themselves. It's part of growing up and being mature, I think.
yes, that's part of it. But also, and I will say this, and I know I'm looking at the clock. I want to make sure we respect the time here. But I will say that leaders who acquire coaching skills are much, much better leaders, much more effective. So great leaders are great coaches too. And I would encourage anybody who's leading a team to ask themselves how they can acquire coaching skills. And that's something I'd be happy to talk to anybody about. It's
Yeah,
my greatest passion.
right. I totally agree that I think today the definition of being a leader in a company and organization, you know, developing the ability to coach is comes with the turf of being a leader, because that's what also uh, I mean, everybody benefits the leader and everybody around the leader. Uh, and that's what people are looking for. You look at surveys done by large organizations, and this keeps coming up that people want a coach, not a manager, right?
Exactly.
But there's a process to get there.
Well, it's not only process, it's a different skill set. And
Yeah.
sometimes leaders think, well, I don't have time for that. That's not my area of expertise. It's not, it's going to slow me down. And unfortunately, it will slow them down, but it will speed them up in the long run. So I always say to leaders, yes, this process will require you to slow down a little bit, but it will cut off so much excess um, you know, time problems, like it will just speed you right up in the end.
Well, it's about changing one's leadership style. I
Yep.
think is really
Yep.
um, going from a autocratic type style to a more participative coaching style of leadership. I think that's the
Exactly.
shift that
Yeah.
needs to happen. Well, Kim, it's been a great conversation. Uh,
Thank you so much.
I love every night on my iPhone, I have an app that reminds me to journal. And I've been ignoring it, but after this conversation, I'm going to start
There you
looking
go.
at
It's time.
my beliefs. I'm going to go to your website. I'm going to use those prompts. I love applying what I learned from people that I interview, and I'm going to definitely address that. And I encourage everybody listening to do the same. If you want to make a shift, if you're dissatisfied about something, especially if you're a leader listening to this, you want to make a shift, start with going to Kim's website. I'll put a link in the description of this video and get going on this. And if you need help, of course, contact Kim and have a discussion with her.
Amazing.
So again, Kim, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. For those new to my channel, if you haven't subscribed, I invite you to do so now and turn on notifications to get news of new videos like this. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk again soon.